Her beauty was out of this world. I couldn't resist the alien shopkeeper. Nico Reyes pressed his palm against the viewing port, watching as Cobalt Station grew larger against the canvas of stars. After 6 months in deep space, the massive ring-shaped bazaar looked like heaven, a symphony of lights, movement, and the promise of solid ground beneath his feet. Docking in 15 minutes. Captain, his ship's AI announced. Thanks, Mara, and it's just Nico now. Haven't been captain of anything but this rust bucket since I left Earth Fleet. His small trading vessel, the Wanderer, carried a modest cargo of Earth rarities, coffee beans, vintage whiskey, and a few pounds of chocolate. Small treasures that would fetch enough to keep him flying for another few months. The nomadic life suited him, even if loneliness occasionally seeped through the cracks of his carefully constructed independence. The docking clamps engaged with a satisfying metallic clunk, and Nico gathered his trader's license and identification. Cobalt Station was notorious for its bureaucracy, the price of doing business in a place where over 300 species converged to trade. After clearing customs, Nico was swept into the pulsing heart of the station, a vast, multi-level marketplace that spiraled through the station's central axis. The noise hit him first, a cacophony of voices, music, and the mechanical hum of the station itself. The scents came next, spices he couldn't name, cooking food from a dozen worlds, and the metallic tang of recycled air. First time on Cobalt? A voice chirped from below. A small furry being with 4 eyes looked up at him. No, been here a few times, Nico replied, adjusting the pack on his shoulder. Looking for the mineral exchange in Sector 7. The creature pointed toward a distant archway and Nico nodded his thanks. As he navigated through the crowds, his trader's eye cataloged potential opportunities. A vendor selling what looked like crystallized gases, another offering textiles that shifted colors as he passed. He was so distracted that he nearly collided with a hovering cart piled high with glowing containers. Watch yourself, came a melodic voice from behind the cart. These are volatile when shaken. Nico stepped back, apology on his lips. But the words died when he saw the cart's owner. She stood slightly taller than him, with smooth skin the color of twilight. Her eyes were amber with flecks of gold, large and expressive in a face framed by what looked like tendrils rather than hair, soft, flowing strands that moved gently as though suspended in water. Her features were almost human, yet beautifully alien. I'm sorry, he managed. I wasn't paying attention. Clearly, her mouth curved into what he hoped was a smile. New arrival? Just docked. Nico Reyes. He extended his hand, then quickly withdrew it, unsure if her species practiced handshakes. To his surprise, she reached out, her fingers brushing against his palm in what felt like a deliberate caress rather than a handshake. Lyra Thal, she replied. You seem lost. Mineral exchange. Sector 7. She made a soft musical sound that might have been laughter. You're heading the wrong direction, follow me. I'm going that way. Nico fell into step beside her, suddenly conscious of his travel-worn clothes and the stubble on his jaw. You're a trader? She asked, guiding her cart through the crowd with practiced ease. Solo operator, small cargo. Earth goods mostly. Her eyes widened slightly. Earth? That's quite distant. What brings you all the way to Cobalt? Freedom, he answered honestly. The chance to see things most humans never will. Something in her expression shifted, a flicker of interest or perhaps recognition. Like what you're seeing so far? Nico found himself smiling. More with every passing moment. As they reached a junction in the marketplace, she gestured toward a side corridor illuminated with blue lights. The mineral exchange is through there. Perhaps we'll cross paths again, Earth Trader. Before he could respond, she guided her cart down another passage, the glow of her containers creating a halo around her retreating form. Nico watched her go, a strange tightness in his chest. The mineral exchange could wait. He found himself wondering where to find Lyra Thal again when his business was done. 3 days had passed since Nico's arrival on Cobalt Station, and he found himself making increasingly thin excuses to visit the small corner of the marketplace where he'd first met Lyra. On his 4th accidental pass through the area, he finally spotted a small shop tucked between 2 larger establishments, its entrance draped with shimmering fabric that seemed to change patterns as it moved. A delicate sign in multiple languages identified it as Starfall Curiosities. Taking a deep breath, Nico stepped inside. The interior was a treasure trove of oddities, artifacts from distant worlds arranged with artistic precision. Bioluminescent sculptures cast a gentle glow across the room, while anti-gravity displays showcased minerals that hovered and slowly rotated. The air smelled of something sweet and unfamiliar. "The Earth Trader returns," came Lyra's voice from behind a curtained doorway. She emerged holding what appeared to be a glass orb filled with swirling mist. "I wondered if you might find your way here." "You knew this was my destination all along," Nico replied with a half-smile. "You never actually told me how to find the mineral exchange." Lyra's tendrils rippled in what he was beginning to recognize as amusement. "And yet you found it anyway. A resourceful human." "I also found you," he said, more boldly than intended. Her amber eyes studied him with open curiosity. "And why would you seek me out?" "I brought something," Nico said, reaching into his pack and retrieving a small wooden box. A trading gesture. Lyra set down the orb and approached, her movements fluid and graceful. When she stood before him, Nico noticed the subtle scent of her, like rain and distant spices. He opened the box to reveal several squares of dark chocolate. "It's called chocolate. From Earth, considered precious there." Lyra's expression brightened with interest. She reached for a piece, her fingers brushing against his. "May I?" Nico nodded, watching as she brought the chocolate to her lips. The moment she tasted it, her eyes widened and a soft sound of pleasure escaped her. "This is remarkable," she murmured. "Complex, bitter yet sweet." "Like many of the best things," Nico replied, finding himself captivated by the way her expressions shifted so openly. The next few hours passed in conversation as customers came and went. Nico learned that Lyra was a collector of cultural artifacts, that her people were called the Navari, and that she had left her homeworld 5 cycles ago to explore the trading routes. In turn, he shared stories of Earth's oceans, of desert sunsets, of snow falling in winter. As the station's lighting dimmed to simulate evening, Nico reluctantly prepared to leave. "Would you?" Lyra began, then paused as the lights flickered momentarily. A second later, they went out completely, plunging the shop into darkness. A station-wide announcement echoed, "Temporary power fluctuation in sectors 5 through 8. Emergency systems active. Full restoration expected within 6 hours." In the sudden darkness, only the shop's bioluminescent items provided illumination, casting ethereal blue and purple light that transformed the space into something magical. Nico could see Lyra's silhouette, her tendrils now faintly glowing with their own subtle luminescence. "Well," she said softly, "it seems you're trapped here for a while." "Unfortunate timing," Nico replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. Lyra moved closer, her face now visible in the gentle glow. "Perhaps not. I was about to invite you to share an evening meal. The universe simply made the decision easier." She guided him to a small sitting area at the back of the shop, where they sat surrounded by the ethereal light of her artifacts. From a cooling unit she produced food unfamiliar to Nico, crystalline fruits and something like bread with a purple hue. As they ate, the conversation deepened. Nico found himself sharing things he rarely discussed. His disillusionment with Earthfleet, his childhood dreams of alien worlds, his solitary existence aboard the Wanderer. "You chose freedom over belonging," Lyra observed, her voice gentle in the dimness. "I thought they were mutually exclusive," Nico admitted. "Now I'm not so sure." Her hand found his in the semi-darkness, her touch warm and deliberate. "Many things once thought impossible become possible when we cross boundaries." The air between them seemed to charge with unspoken possibility. Nico leaned forward slowly, giving her time to retreat if she wished. Instead, Lyra closed the distance between them. Their first kiss was tentative, an exploration of the unknown. Her lips were softer than he expected, warmer. When they parted, Nico felt slightly breathless, as though he'd stepped into vacuum without a suit. "That was," he began. "A promising first cultural exchange," Lyra finished, her eyes reflecting the blue light around them, her fingers intertwined with his, the simple contact somehow more intimate than the kiss. Perhaps power failures have their advantages after all. "Close your eyes," Lyra instructed, leading Nico by the hand through a section of Cobalt Station he hadn't yet explored. 2 weeks had passed since their evening in the darkened shop. 2 weeks of daily visits, shared meals, and increasingly passionate encounters. Nico had extended his docking permit twice, inventing trading opportunities to justify his continued presence on the station. "Where are you taking me?" he asked, obediently keeping his eyes shut as she guided him forward. "Somewhere special," she replied, her voice tinged with excitement, something few outsiders see. He heard a door slide open, felt a change in the air, moister, warmer, filled with unfamiliar scents. The sound of flowing water reached his ears. "Now you can look," Lyra said. Nico opened his eyes and gasped. They stood in an enormous geodesic dome at least 100 meters across. Inside was an exact recreation of a Navari landscape, red-tinged vegetation, strange spiraling trees, and pools of iridescent water. The artificial sky above displayed twin moons casting a silvery glow over everything. "The holographic gardens," Lyra explained. "Each dome recreates a different homeworld for station residents who miss their native environments. This is Navara, where I was born." Nico turned slowly, taking it all in. "It's beautiful. Alien but beautiful. Come," she said, tugging his hand. "There's more to see." She led him along winding paths through the exotic foliage to a small clearing beside one of the glowing pools. There, she'd prepared a surprise, a picnic of sorts, with foods from both their worlds arranged on a woven mat. As they settled beside each other, Nico noticed how the simulated moonlight made Lyra's skin seem to shimmer. He reached out, tracing a finger along the curve of her cheek. "In this light," he murmured, "you look exactly as you would on your homeworld?" Lyra leaned into his touch. "Yes, it's designed to be perfect, down to the gravity and air composition." "Thank you for sharing this with me," Nico said, suddenly understanding the gift she was offering. A glimpse of her origins, her true self. They ate slowly, talking about the differences in their perceptions. Lyra explained how Navari experienced colors beyond human visual range, how their sense of touch was heightened, particularly in their tendril-like hair. "May I?" Nico asked, his hand hovering near the flowing strands. Lyra nodded, her expression becoming more serious. "Among my people, this is intimate." Gently, he ran his fingers through the tendrils, which responded by curling slightly around his hand. Lyra's eyes drifted closed, and a soft sigh escaped her. "I can feel your emotions," she whispered, "when you touch me there. Your curiosity, your desire." Nico moved closer, drawing her into his arms. "And what else?" Her eyes opened, meeting his with startling directness. "Something deeper, something that scares you." The truth of her words made his heart race. In just 2 weeks, this alien woman had broken through defenses he'd maintained for years. "I received a message today," he said quietly, "from the Interstellar Trading Guild. My former partner filed a complaint when he learned I was still here. They're questioning my license renewal." Lyra's expression darkened. "Because of me? Because interspecies relationships complicate trade agreements," Nico finished. "It's bureaucratic nonsense, but it could affect my standing." "And I received communication from my family," Lyra admitted. "They've heard rumors. They're concerned about my reputation as a cultural artifact dealer if I'm involved with a human." The artificial moonlight cast shadows across the clearing as they sat in silence, the weight of external pressures suddenly heavy between them. "What do you want, Lyra?" Nico finally asked. "Not your family. Not your business, you." She moved then, sliding onto his lap, her face inches from his. "I want this," she whispered before bringing her lips to his. The kiss deepened quickly, weeks of growing attraction igniting into something more urgent. Nico's hands traced the curve of her spine while her tendrils wrapped gently around his neck, creating sensations unlike anything he'd experienced before. Under the light of simulated moons, surrounded by the plants of a world he'd never truly visit, Nico surrendered to the moment, to the taste of her, the soft sounds she made as his hands explored, the way her skin seemed to pulse with light where he touched. Their bodies found a rhythm together, different yet complementary, discovering new pathways to pleasure across the bridge of their differences. And in the aftermath, as they lay entwined on the woven mat, Nico realized that the vastness of space had finally given him what Earth never could, a connection that transcended the merely human. "We'll find a way," he promised, pressing his lips to her forehead. "Some things are worth fighting for." Lyra's tendrils curled contentedly against his chest as she gazed up at him. "On Navara we have a saying, The universe creates no barriers that love cannot cross. Above them, the holographic moons continued their eternal orbit, casting their silver light on two beings from different worlds who had somehow found each other in the infinite expanse of the cosmos. And the traders' hall buzzed with activity as species from across the galaxy haggled, negotiated, and sealed deals with ceremonial gestures unique to their worlds. Nico sat alone at a small table, nursing a glass of synthesized whiskey that tasted nothing like the real Earth variety. His eyes frequently darted to the entrance, watching for trouble. It had been nearly a month since his arrival at Cobalt Station. What should have been a 3-day trading stop transformed into something he'd never anticipated. The message from the guild had been just the beginning. Now rumors circulated through the trading community, whispers about the human who had gone native, forsaking his responsibilities for an alien lover. Still drowning your sorrows, Reyes? The voice struck Nico like a physical blow. He didn't need to look up to know who had found him. Marcos Vega, his former partner, slid into the seat opposite him. Despite the 5 years since they'd last met, Marcos looked largely unchanged. The same calculating eyes, the same precisely trimmed beard, the same smirk that had once charmed investors and customs officials alike. "What do you want, Marcos?" Nico kept his voice level, though his hand tightened around his glass. "Just checking on an old friend," Marcos replied, signaling for a drink. "I heard the most fascinating stories about you and some exotic shopkeeper. Didn't believe it until I saw you walking together in the marketplace. You always did have unusual tastes." Nico met his gaze evenly. "You filed a complaint with the guild." Marcos shrugged. "The guild has regulations for a reason. Intimate relationships with non-humans can compromise trade agreements, create conflicts of interest. You know this. That's bureaucratic nonsense, and you know it. This is about the Helios deal, isn't it? You're still bitter I walked away." Marcos's smirk faded. "You didn't just walk away. You took our research on the Neptune route with you. Data we collected together. Then you disappeared into deep space. Data I collected," Nico corrected, "while you were negotiating backdoor deals with the Mars Consortium. I left because you were corrupt, Marcos. And now you're sleeping with the competition." Marcos hissed, leaning forward. "The Navari control 3 major artifact trading routes. Don't pretend this is about romance." Before Nico could respond, his communicator vibrated. "A message from Lyra. Need to see you." "My shop. Important." He stood abruptly. "This conversation is over." Marcos called after him. "The guild hearing is in 2 days, Reyes. Your license is as good as revoked." Nico pushed through the crowded marketplace, his mind racing. The timing couldn't be worse. He'd just secured a promising deal for rare earth textiles, his first major contract in months. Without his trading license, he'd be grounded, unable to leave the station except as a passenger. When he reached Starfall Curiosities, he found Lyra pacing, her tendrils moving in agitated patterns. Several storage containers were open, artifacts carefully wrapped and arranged inside. "Lyra, what's happening?" She turned, her amber eyes troubled. "My family has summoned me home. They've sent a transport. It arrives tomorrow." The floor seemed to shift beneath Nico's feet. "Tomorrow? For how long?" "They didn't specify." She moved closer, taking his hands in hers. But the message was clear. "They fear I'm jeopardizing our family's trading status by associating with you." "Marcos found me today," Nico said quietly. "The guild hearing is in 2 days. It's all connected, your family, the guild, they're trying to separate us." Lyra's expression hardened. "My people value proper connections. Relationships that enhance status, that preserve bloodlines. They've likely already arranged meetings with suitable Navari traders." The implication hung heavy between them. This wasn't just about trading licenses or family disapproval. This was about their future, together or apart. "We could leave," Nico suggested suddenly. "I still have the Wanderer. We could go somewhere beyond guild jurisdiction, beyond Navari influence. And become what? Wanderers without home or purpose?" Lyra shook her head. "I've built something here, Nico, so have you. Then we fight," he said firmly. "Together. I'll speak to your family. You come to my hearing." Lyra's tendrils rippled with emotion. "My family won't even permit you in their presence, and your guild. Will they really listen to a non-human defending a human traitor?" The reality of their situation settled between them like a physical weight. Different species, different worlds, different obligations. The universe suddenly seemed determined to remind them of all the reasons they shouldn't be together. Lyra stepped into his embrace, her body fitting against his in the way that still amazed him, so different yet so perfectly complementary. Her tendrils wrapped gently around his neck, sharing her emotions directly with him. Fear, frustration, determination, and beneath it all, a depth of feeling that transcended simple translation. Tonight, she whispered against his chest. Let's forget about tomorrow. They moved to her private quarters behind the shop, a space that had become increasingly familiar to Nico over the past weeks. The room reflected Lyra's dual nature, artifacts from dozens of worlds displayed with a curator's precision, alongside touches of sensual comfort, soft fabrics, ambient lighting that adjusted to their moods, subtle scents that enhanced relaxation. Their coming together that night had a desperate edge. Each touch, each kiss, each shared breath seeming more precious for the uncertainty that loomed. Nico memorized every detail, the way her skin flushed with emotion, how her tendrils created electric sensations wherever they touched him, the soft sound she made when pleasure overtook her. Hours later, as they lay entwined in the dimness, Nico traced patterns on her skin. What if, he began carefully, we created something neither of them could ignore, something that would force both our worlds to acknowledge us? Lyra propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face. What are you suggesting? A partnership. Not just personal, but professional. A trading venture that combines your expertise in cultural artifacts with my connections to earth goods. Something new on the station. As he outlined his idea, Lyra's expression shifted from skepticism to consideration to growing excitement. By the time the station's lighting began to simulate dawn, they had formulated not just a plan, but a declaration of intent. One that would challenge both their worlds to see beyond ancient prejudices. 6 months later, the grand opening of Convergence Trading Post drew crowds from every sector of Cobalt Station. Located at the junction between the Human Quarter and the Navari Enclave, the spacious shop showcased treasures from both worlds and dozens of others, all with detailed cultural context provided in multiple languages. Nico adjusted the final display, a case containing both Earth Jade and Navari crystal sculptures, arranged to show their striking similarities despite evolving on worlds light years apart. The symbolism wasn't subtle, but subtlety had never been their goal. The guild representatives are here, Lyra murmured, coming to stand beside him. She wore formal Navari attire, flowing fabrics in deep blues that complemented her skin tone, with intricate silver embroidery denoting her family lineage. Along with the Navari trade minister, Nico took her hand, squeezing it gently. Ready to make history? The past months had been a battle on multiple fronts. Nico had indeed lost his independent trader's license at the guild hearing, only to apply for a new classification as a cultural exchange specialist, a category so rarely used that the guild had to convene a special committee to consider it. Lyra had returned to Navarra for 3 tense weeks. Facing family pressure and cultural expectations, she had returned to Cobalt with a surprising ally, her grandmother, a respected elder who had once been an explorer herself, and who now sat in a place of honor near the shop's entrance. Together, they had navigated bureaucratic obstacles, funding challenges, and continued social pressure. For every supporter who embraced their vision, there had been others who predicted failure, who whispered that such unions were doomed to incompatibility. Yet here they stood, about to officially open a business that was as much a political statement as a commercial venture. Nico moved to the center of the shop, activating the communication system. Welcome to Convergence, he began, addressing the gathered crowd. We created this space with a simple belief, that understanding between worlds begins with appreciating each other's cultures. Lyra joined him, her tendrils moving in gentle patterns that conveyed pride to those who could read Navari body language. For too long, trading has been transactional rather than transformative. We hope to change that, one artifact, one story, one connection at a time. As they conducted the formal tour, Nico noticed the guild representatives exchanging thoughtful glances, clearly impressed by the commercial potential, despite their previous objections. The Navari trade minister spent considerable time examining the educational displays, occasionally nodding with approval. Lyra's grandmother, however, seemed most affected. As the official proceedings concluded and guests began to mingle, she beckoned them both to her side. In my 162 cycles, she said, her voice carrying the musical quality that all Navari shared but deepened by age. I have witnessed many attempts at interspecies cooperation. Most fail because they try to erase differences rather than celebrate them. Her gaze moved between Nico and Lyra. You two understand what others do not. That harmony requires distinct notes, not a single sound. She reached into her robes and withdrew a small object wrapped in shimmering fabric. This belongs to both of you now. Lyra gasped softly as her grandmother unwrapped the package, revealing an ancient Navari bonding pendant, 2 intertwined spirals of metal, 1 silver, 1 with the reddish hue of Navari precious ore. Grandmother, Lyra whispered, this is your bonding pendant. From your union with grandfather. The elder Navari nodded. And now it will witness another union, one perhaps even more significant. She placed it in Lyra's hands, then covered them with Nico's. Your path will not be easy, but it is important. Remember that. As the celebration continued around them, Nico and Lyra slipped away to the small observation deck adjacent to their new shop. Through the massive viewport, they could see the endless expanse of space. Stars, distant nebulae, the infinite possibility that had brought them together. We did it, Nico said, still somewhat amazed. We actually did it. Lyra's tendrils curled contentedly as she leaned against him. This is just the beginning, she reminded him. The real work starts tomorrow. I was thinking, Nico said carefully, about your grandmother's gift. About what it means. Lyra turned to face him, her amber eyes searching his. Among my people, such pendants are exchanged during the bonding ceremony. A physical symbol of 2 lives intertwined. Nico took a deep breath. On Earth, we have similar customs. Different symbols, same meaning. He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small box. I had this made. It's not traditional for either of our worlds, but then, neither are we. Inside the box lay a ring crafted from both Earth gold and Navari metal, set with small stones from both their worlds, arranged in a pattern that matched the constellation visible from both Earth and Navara. I don't know what the proper words are in your language, Nico said softly, but in mine I would ask, will you share your life with me? Create something new together. Face whatever comes as partners in all things. Lyra's tendrils reached out, gently touching his face in the intimate gesture they had come to share in their most private moments. Through that connection, Nico felt her answer before she spoke it. Joy, certainty, love that transcended the biological differences between them. Yes, she said simply. In any language across any distance, my answer is yes. As they sealed their commitment with a kiss, beyond the viewport, a shooting star traced a brief, brilliant path across the darkness, one of countless possibilities in an infinite universe where differences could become strengths and boundaries could become bridges, where love might take unfamiliar forms but remained, at its core, the most familiar force of all.